today?
Not much.
So your
Just
two the two things you had in your email are aim and shoot, point and click. So the only thing you should know really about account transfers is we have 1 business day to validate, 3 days to transfer. So on ACATS, we have what's called the TIF, the transfer form, transfer instruction forms. Pretty aim and shoot. And then on your, you can get in the weeds on taxes on options. The only ones that are tricky, well, let me give you an overview. The only option that can ever be long-term if you're a speculator. Now, remember, speculator means you don't have the stock. So you just buy a call, you buy a put, you sell a call, you sell a put, you sell a straddle, whatever the case may be. If you don't have the stock, all options trading is going to be short-term. And it makes sense because there's only one option that you could be at risk for more than a year, right? And to qualify for what's called a long-term capital gain, pay attention to my phraseology here because it's important. You have to be at risk for more than 12 months. Now, I think where a lot of people get hung up is I got to hold it for more than 12 months. Not so much hold it for more than 12 months, but be at risk for more than 12 months. Now, that's where now we can change gears a little bit because if you have the stock and you buy a put, you might interrupt your holding period, right? Because when you buy the stock and you buy a put, you're no longer at risk. Now, that wouldn't matter, Brady. If today I go buy 100 shares of Apple at 154 and I buy a 150 put at 3, 157 is my cost basis. And it doesn't matter because the holding period would be the same. The only tricky thing, and again, if you tell me you messed up on the 7 because of a tax consequence of a protective put, I'm going to say, I don't think so. Test preventers really go into the weeds a little too much. But anyways, now let's say I buy the Apple and I don't buy the put for the protection right out of the gate. So I'm 6 months in and I'm looking great on my Apple. And I think, man, I need to buy some protection. And now I buy the put. That's going to reset my holding period. So what I mean by that is now we're going to start over on day one again because I'm going to have to be at risk for 12 months. And the minute I bought that put, I was no longer at risk, according to the IRS. So that's a tricky one. The only other tricky one is a covered call when I get exercised. So I buy the Apple at 154. I sell the 160 call for 4. This is the one time I usually say to people, taxation cost basis follows break even. And this is again, one of those little areas of minutia that doesn't not so. So what I mean by that is if I buy the Apple 154 and I sell the 160 calls at 6, I would say, okay, my break even is what is that? 148, right? I'm out 150 for the stock. I brought in 6 points for the option. My break even is 148, but that is not my cost basis in the stock. So my cost base is going to be 154. I sold the 160 call for 6. And if I get exercised, the sales proceeds are 166. The 160 that I sold the Apple for plus the 6. And I bought the Apple 154, so that'd be a 12-point capital gain. So again, those are, not, I don't think anything that you need to, in terms of remediation. I don't know. Have you done any practice tests yet?
Yeah, I did the first Kaplan test. I got a 76
Oh, good,
on the
great,
first
great,
one.
great. So
So
the reason I ask on both those questions, they're not large enough to be as part of your remediation strategy. So when you're doing your tracker and it tells you you're weak in a certain area, the thing you want to make sure is when you look at it, say, okay, is it a large enough target rich environment that it makes sense for me to do some remediation on it?
right.
These are not. And so what I mean by that is you probably should just pick them up like here, or as you miss questions along the way, you're still going to keep grinding and keep getting some base. We're not trying to miss questions to learn stuff, but we are trying to miss questions to kind of see what we need to circle back on and do that. But make sure when you're doing official remediation, I call official remediation, like your tracker says, like, your performance tracker says you're weak in munis. Well, then, that's a problem, right? So
Right.
you got to say, okay, well, let me go back there and I call it base, lay some more base on that. So that's what you want to do. But your 76 score is fantastic. You should feel really good.
Thank you.
Just talking to somebody today, 70 plus. I'm not as higher the better. I'll start with that because everyone, well, 70. Some firms want to get 80 or 90. I think 70, you're not at risk. As long as you stay above that 70 range and consistently doing that, I think you're fine. If you dip into the below the 70 range, then you start being at risk. And when is your test date?
It is the 15th.
Oh, so you got plenty
So,
of time still. That's great. That's great.
yep,
And
yep.
you're a Kappa using Kaplan or Past Perfect or?
Kaplan at this point.
Okay, good. Okay, so
Yep.
76, the other reason I ask is because those scores, it depends on the vendor, whether it's a score we can rely upon. If it's Past Perfect or Kaplan, we can certainly rely on that 76 as a valid mark of where you're at. So
Awesome.
what's the plan? Anything else you want on your mind in terms of our coaching call?
So I mean, like one other thing too, I guess this is kind of like big picture thing, but so I've been in the business for a few years
Oh,
now.
great. You already have your
So
six or?
I have my 65.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
so I work at an RIA, but I'm actually going to work at a broker dealer. It's a hybrid, so that's why
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
going for the
that's
7.
pretty standard nowadays, yeah.
Yeah. So you know, it's funny because I watch a lot of your videos and you say like the middle section is really like where you want to like focus in on because that's kind of like the meat of the test.
Yeah,
And
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it's kind of like I don't want to say like I know a lot of it, but a lot of it's kind of like industry experience. Like I understand the taxation of variable annuities. So it's kind of tough for me to like study a little bit because it's like I want to make sure I focus on
Well, yeah,
the
I get
middle
it because if
part.
you're familiar with it already, it's kind of like, well, gee, I already know this stuff.
Right, right, exactly. So it's like I don't know how much you would recommend like the account opening stuff and all
Let's
like
just let me see if I can grab a document here real quick. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it, but let's see if I can. Um, Series 7. There we go. Okay, now let's see if I can bring that into our session. Okay, can you see my screen?
yes, I can.
Okay, so what you want to be able to do on this document, can you still see my screen or did it move?
Yep, yep,
Okay,
I can still see it.
okay. So on this document, I highly recommend you print this. And as you look at it here, we have our 4 functions. So I was just at a podcast with my buddy Brian about the 65. And one of my comments was, is I think of the 65 as a baby 7, but it doesn't have a narrative thread to it, as does the 7. So as you can see here, the test writing committee says there are 4 functions to being a broker. The first function is, can you find a customer? Function 1, right? This is like, don't call cold call before 8 in the morning or after 9 in the evening, that kind of stuff. 9 questions, right? Open accounts. That's again function 2, right? I find a customer. Can I open the account? 11 questions. And so as you see here, what I always try and tell people to be aware of is understand the weighting of this exam, because people will spend a lot of time and it's not a target rich environment. That is the target rich environment. And that is in Kaplan Unit 2. So Unit 2 is where you want to be spending a lot of your time. In your performance tracker, I told somebody be careful, because if you, like, for example, your ACAT question, if you're doing that stuff and there's like, somebody said, oh my God, Dean, I got a 50% in this area. I go, well, pay attention though. You only had 2 questions. So you missed 1 of 2. That's not a big deal. If you get a 50% on an area with 50 questions, that's going to be a bigger deal. And then what happens after you do the trade, right? So it makes some flow sense here. The flow of being a baby broker is, can a baby broker find a customer? Can a baby broker open an account? Can a baby broker put an investment in the account? Know what type of investment should go into the account? More importantly, what investment should not? Baby broker is not a derogatory term. It's just a term of endearment for people who are new, right? And then what happens after the trade? What happens after the trade? So now, if you go through this document, I always think you should have this with you, at all times when you're studying, because you want to kind of try and tie it to your thing. The red is me explicating this on a video. So those are my comments, which I try and do separate from the comments of, the test itself. What FINRA is telling us. Sometimes people say, well, how do you know it's not on the test? And I said, well, they can't randomly make up things to test you on. If it's not in this document, they're not allowed to test you on it. So if it's in this document, then they can test you on this stuff. So if we go to function 3, here we go. So here's function 3. We just said that's 91 questions, right? Can you provide a customer with information about investments, make recommendations, transfer assets? There's your thing about transferring assets. And do you know all the strategy about options, risks and rewards, that kind of stuff, right? And so this is the area where all these questions are. As you can see here, here's our options section that you're going to get tested on. Here's your stuff about balance sheets, all that kind of stuff. So I would highly recommend you have that. And in this area here, here's preferred stocks. Here is, other stuff. And again, my comments in red are me commenting on a video that I made based on this document. But that being said, when you see this document, you get all the way through it. Of that area, this third area, the biggest thing you're going to get tested on is options, munis, and mutual funds. Options, munis, and mutual funds. So you're going to get 20 plus or minus options. What I mean is some people tell me they got 25. Sometimes they tell me, 15. I don't know. People who don't like options tell me their whole exam was options. They got 135 option questions, whatever you're not comfortable with. But I think about 20 is what you could expect. Mutual funds, don't underrate mutual funds. Lots of mutual fund questions. That includes contrasting open and closed end funds. That includes contrasting ETFs with an open end fund. That includes ETNs in ETFs. And that's 20 plus questions there.
Oh, okay.
So that gets us to 40 of the 91. That also includes variable annuities. So, throw variable annuities in there, you could easily get 30 questions. So I call all those things, by the way, package products. Now, in the package product area, another one that I wouldn't spend a lot of time on is partnerships. Test prep vendors go total overkill on partnerships. Maybe 2, 3, know what a general partner is, know what a limited partner is, know about the flow through. That's another area where I would say I would be willing to just miss practice questions in a simulated practice test on partnerships and think that would be sufficient. So, they go total overkill. So that's one you can toss out of that package product area. So that lets you focus a little more on the other ones, the REITs, the mutual funds, all that stuff. And then municipal securities is about 20 questions. So municipal bonds. And what I would recommend there, Brady, at some point in your study of municipal bonds, take a sheet of paper and fold it in half. And on one side, write all the terms associated with GOs. And on the other, all the terms associated with revenue bonds. Because a big part of that, part of your exam is distinguishing between GOs and revenues. They just love the except format. All the following are associated with GOs except, or all the following are associated with revenues except, or which of the following is a GO, so that's a big part of those muni questions. And you're going to get about 20 of them. So 20 options, 20 munis, 30 package products. So as you can see there, that's 20, 40, 70. And then I call the rest of that just like potpourri stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then in function 4, so the couple areas I told you not to worry about. First area I told you not to spend a lot of time on is partnerships. Another area not to spend a lot of time on is margin. Margin, you're going to get maybe 2 or 3 questions. They're going to be very straightforward. Again, I would think I would spend my time elsewhere, and both in your practice test and on the actual exam, I would give yourself permission to guess B, assign it to the universe, and know that you're going to make it up elsewhere. And if you're getting those 70 plus scores, you can afford to do that. You should definitely know the classical margin equation, long and short. You should definitely know 25%, 30%, 50%, the documentation that's there. But again, all test prep vendors, including Kaplan, my God, if you're doing it self-study, you think it must be important because there's like 200 pages on it, and it's not. I ask people, what do you, when, back in the day when we had live classes, I used to go around and have everybody introduce themselves and say, what are you concerned about? And a lot of times people would say margin and option. I said, well, we're going to cover both, but let's be clear. The options is a much, much bigger deal than is the margin, right? So that's another area where you can kind of, say, okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on partnerships. I'm not going to spend too much time on margin. And then in the muni area, there is some minutia that these test prep vendors have that, you're not going to see on the test. So I wouldn't be too bad. Kaplan every once in a while has what I call a gotcha question. A gotcha question. So you thought you knew it? And there's some 3-paragraph explanation about how come you missed some little thing that pivoted that question. So, when you're doing you're getting your good scores, don't try and suck up to practice questions. And remember, practice questions are not so much to, when you're doing your practice test, you're not learning by doing the practice test. We're trying to get a mark to see whether there's any remediation that's necessary. So, it's aggravating to me when, like, on our call, I said, what's your score? And you said 76, I think. But, sometimes I got guys, it's 3 days out and they want to talk about the test. And I go, what's your last score? And they don't even have a score yet. I said, well, then the problem with that is we don't know where you're at. And we need to know that so you can feel good about how you're progressing to the 15th. So you have plenty of time. So don't burn yourself out too quickly. But, we want to do that again as you lay some more base. If you're testing on March 15th, on the 13th, I would do another practice test. Do you have a TestGeek paid supplement?
I do, yes.
So Brian's Series 7 exam is a very good correlation to the actual exam. You might want to take that PDF of his practice exam and save that for the 13th. That'll give us good news or bad news, Brady, because what I mean bad news, if you get below 72 on that, that means, it had to have been the real test. Missed it. Now, I had a guy, we did it on a Friday, he was testing Monday, and he got a 67. I said, well, had that been the real test, would have failed, but good news for you, you're testing Monday, so we got to grind, my friend. I know what you're planning on doing this weekend, but it better be planning on finding a few points that we need. Good news, he passed. He didn't get wobbly. He stayed dedicated. So put that one aside. So you got that one. And then, don't try and stack up too many practice tests because you need time to kind of digest and go over them. So sometimes people say, oh, I'm going to do 3 practice exams today. I go, what a waste. I mean, that's not going to be good because the third one, you're going to be tired. So, maybe you do one today, whatever day you do a practice exam. Just one of your study activities till about a week out. Once you're a week out, you should almost be exclusively doing, practice questions and practice tests. But anyways, until then, give yourself time in between it. So if I did a practice test today, for example, I would take tomorrow, not do one, and review that one. To review it and say, okay, here's what it's pointing to. You've been doing, it sounds like. Use that tracker and take a day to do that and say, okay, let me go now take another one and then do that. And you should be able to knock out as many, you don't need to do it every day, but you should do I think people are not doing enough of them. So, you have lots of questions to do. Now, Brian and I got into it today, and a lot of people are different. I believe that, you should, as much as you can, try and exhaust the Kaplan-Kubek. But, there's lots of people who disagree and say, you could be doing other things and as long as you're scoring well. But, if I were your accountability partner, I would want you to commit to whatever the activity is. And so I'd say, well, how many questions am I going to see from you today? 50 questions, 100 questions, and one of the things I tell people as a former real accountability partner, now I'm kind of fake, right? Can't hire or fire anybody. But, if I was a real accountability partner and you miss the mark, first thing I would do is go in your Kaplan's back office, because I can see it if I'm a real accountability partner, and say, okay, what was your QBank usage? And almost always there's a direct correlation to people who aren't doing enough questions missing the mark. Very rarely do you go backstage and then you see that they've exhausted the QBank and they missed the mark. So, Brian and I, when we are, friends, we're friends and, drinking scotch and talking about stupid stuff like this. I said, hey, I'd rather err on that side. So, we know that 0 isn't the right answer. And maybe you don't have to exhaust the QBank, but somewhere in between there's a proper QBank usage rate that you want to try and approximate and, just know that going in. But so far, it sounds like your study plan is in pretty good shape. You got a nice practice score. The questions you have are articulate questions. So, it's not like you want to know how does the universe work. It's like, hey, Dean, what do I need to know about taxation on options? What do I need to know about, transferring accounts? That's a good sign as well. Your questions are, I joke, my job is an intermediary. I feel like I'm kind of like a bus driver and I'm trying to get you to the stadium. And then it's your job to go find your seat, take your test and pass it. And I feel bad when I feel like saying somebody, hey, you're not even in the stadium. You're out in the parking lot. So, hey, Series 7, it's over here. So you also have the advantage of having taken, I could think of the 65 as a baby 7. And that might have been years ago, but you have the advantage of your, job experience in that 65. So you have a testing victory already. Did you have to do the SIE or did they waive that for you because you're 65?
No, I have to take that. I'm taking it on Sunday, actually. So
I think you'll be okay. I can't imagine you're going to, but so start out strong. A lot of overlap. So whatever work you've done on your SIE is going to pay dividends on the 7.
Sure.
Just going to be a lot more depth.
Yeah. I took the one that FINRA posts online. I took that test.
Love that one. I love it. It's kind of like Brian's one, and I've done I've explicated that You know, like I do in my thing, you hit pause, you come up with your answer and see me answer and explain it. And then I
Mhm.
took the answer sets and I made different questions, same answer sets, because all those other answers are right answers to different questions.
Right.
So there's another, the test I have is I call it the doppelganger of the FINRA one. And then Brian also has his up there as well on the site on the SIE. So there's plenty of practice. And like I say, based on where you're at on your 7, I'd be awful surprised if you're going to, you know, not make your mark on your SIE.
Awesome.
And then when you're going to have to take a 63 as well, I would imagine, huh?
Yes. Yeah. So that's after the fact. So,
Yeah, then you'd be set. So how long
right.
operational with just your 65?
So, I've had the 65 for coming up on 2 years now. I
Wow,
think it was
that's great.
December.
And you were
Yeah.
just working at a fee-based investment advisor?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So I'm making the switch. My last week with my current firm's actually on not this Friday, next Friday.
Yeah,
So
that's great. I mean,
yeah.
usually people are going the other way, so that's kind of cool that you're coming this way because
Right.
remember there's going to be a little bit more conflicts of interest now because
Right.
now you're an agent of a broker dealer as well as an investment
Exactly.
advisor representative. So hey, but you know it's all of us. That's a common thing where we just have to disclose that relationship. But
Right.
you know, hopefully, you know, it's a good career opportunity. You get some, you know, more compensation. You
For
know,
sure.
you have to move, or is it an opportunity that's available to you?
No, it's actually closer to me from, compared to where I am
That's
now. So
fantastic. And how'd you find
yeah.
it? They come recruit you, or
It's actually a family friend.
oh, that's
So
great. And
yeah.
let me take that back. I had family work for me. When it works well.
Right.
When it doesn't, my brother worked for me, and this guy who was one of my reps got into it with my brother.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, cussed about it. You know, then he thought I was going to intervene, and I said, "Listen, I hate to break the news to you, friend, you know, my friend, but you know, my brother is more important than you. So no, I mean, if he fired you, you were fired. You know, so like I said, when it
Uh,
works, one of the
well,
guys I worked for, his dad, it was his father's firm, and I had Jeff was his name, and I said to Jeff, I said, you know, we could make money, Jeff, if we tried. He said, we're not trying. I said, we're not. And he goes, no, Dean. He said, you know, this is a subchapter S and the losses flow through to my dad. And so this, you know, this is a tax shelter for my dad. I go, really? I, you know, walked down the hall and his name was Mr. K. And I said, hey, Mr. K, are we trying to make money? And he said, Dean, I'm so disappointed in you. How could you ask such a stupid question? Of course I'm trying to make money. I have it as a subchapter S so that at least if we do lose money, you know, it flows through and I can write it off. And you know, and well, you better go talk to, I told him, I said, you better go talk to your son. Your son thinks that the goal here is to be losing money. And I always joke if the IRS came into the office and wants to talk to somebody, I better send them to Mr. K's office because you know, Jeff says this is a tax shelter for daddy. You know, all those losses are going to be disallowed. So
might not be good.
sounds like a
That's
great
funny.
opportunity. Anything else on your mind in terms of your coaching call?
So, one other thing too. So, like, I know that Kaplan actually like allows you to simulate exams, kind of like you alluded
Yeah.
to. So,
Mhm.
I took the practice exam that they, allow you to take, and then I simulated one, and I noticed that the simulated exam I took was way easier. So, I think I got like an 89 on the simulated exam as
Wow.
opposed
Wow.
to the other one.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like, if you have an opinion on should I not put too much stock into like the simulated exams or
Yeah. Don't
maybe
put it too, no matter if it was or don't put any, you're better to not put too much stock in an 89 and like, God, I'm a genius.
right.
You know, it's great. I did, like I say, as your, you know, fake accountability partner, everything is fantastic in this discussion. You know, if I were your, you know, person trying to husband you through the process, I'd be really good. You know, and some companies are really into this kind of thing, going backstage and saying, how are we doing with, you know, this candidate or that candidate? You know, we
Right.
keep track. And I've had companies where I say, no, that's not my function. I'm just here to help them pass the test because they want me to do some of the babysitting function. Like you got to have all of them on the video feed so you can make sure they're there. I go, listen, I don't take attendance. It's like it's not like grade school. But anyways, if that was the case, I said, man, I just talked to Brady tonight. We got a progress report. He's looking really great. But yeah, don't take 89s too seriously.
Hmm.
Make sure you try not to memorize questions. And are you signed up for the version of Kaplan that comes with the mastery?
Yeah, so I haven't taken that one
So you
yet.
got
I
two really good ones. You got Brian's and you got the mastery. Now the
Okay.
mastery, I just want to warn you. Again, you might crush it because you're doing the work. But let's say you don't crush it, because people sometimes take a hit to their confidence, and confidence is really important. That mastery is much tougher. So,
Okay.
don't be surprised if, you're cruising at that 89 level, high 70 level, and you take that mastery and you take a little pushback on that mastery. Same thing, anywhere above 70 is fine. And you're going to pick up points. And I've had people get less than 70 on that mastery and still pass. But you got two real good, simulations are okay. But the two really good ones you have as a resource is you have the Test Geek practice exam, you got the mastery, and those would be my two final ones I do.
Okay.
And again, as I said, if you're testing the 15th, you're going to do the third. I would probably do Brian's the 13th, because Brian's is not, there's no gotcha questions on Brian's. He's not trying to, scare you. Now, I joke the mastery, sometimes Kaplan has major corporate customers. And so the mastery is also designed so the Kaplan can say to corporate customers, if they can pass this mastery, we can assure you they're going to pass their exam. So it is intentionally tougher. In fact, I was on campus teaching a class one time, and I was shocked how well they all did on the mastery. I would like to take credit as the teacher. I'm like, wow, yeah, no. And I thought, man, called somebody backstage. I go, I think there's a disturbance in the force. I can't believe all these people. And what was happening is, I don't know, I think this is stupid, but they were screenshotting the Kaplan mastery questions, and they had their own little site where they were sharing them with new hires. Which defeats the whole purpose of taking the inventory, the intellectual inventory. And I thought, what a foolish thing to do. But anyways, so that is designed to be tougher. It is designed, when back in the days we gave scores on that, on the actual exam, it was about 8 to 12 points tougher. So
Okay.
again, if you're getting a 70 plus on that, you're another positive indicator. Now, again, I think you sound pretty confident. You have no reason not to be confident. So if you're going to take 15th, you're taking Brian's the 13th, maybe take that on the 11th. And that gives you a day to do remediation on the mastery. Kaplan used to not let you have access to the questions you missed. And finally they gave that up because, they were hiding it so that the people couldn't do what I just told you, but you can find out. So you do that on the 11th, you can 12th do remediation, do Brian's on the 13th. And then another common thing that I totally disagree with a lot of people, so you don't want to get too many voices in your head, but some people say, don't do anything on the 14th. And I don't believe that, because you want to keep your rhythm. So if you have to have a testing rhythm. And when people, herky jerky, start their study plan and stop their study plan. And I get it. Some people are working, you got other things going on in life. But on that 14th, testing the 15th, at least we don't care about scores. I just call them warm-up questions. Maybe do 25, 30 warm-ups just to kind of, keep your rhythm, so to speak, right? I joke. It's just like the guys coming on the court to shoot shooting drills. Just get some shots up. Make sure you're feeling good, but don't do anything. Don't wear yourself out, right? So got to pace yourself, and then it's huge to just get some rest on the fortnight of the 14th, right?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else?
No, I guess one other thing. What would you recommend as far as, listening to like maybe a video? I like your explication videos that you have on there.
I like
Do you think
those.
those are kind of
That's
good?
the first playlist. My first playlist. I think I put it in the functional order of performance opportunity. So I think I got the function 3 at the front of that thing. So
Okay.
yeah, I love that. So those are, I don't know how many are in the playlist, but it goes through the entire explication. And then I would cherry pick. So the other thing you can do is rotate your activities. So, don't read and then do questions immediately on your reading. You need to take 30-minute breaks so that you know how much. It doesn't matter, we don't want to retain something just after we read it. We need to retain it for the exam. So if you're doing reading, for example, and you're going to do some quiz questions, wait 30 minutes, then do the questions to see if you really retained it, or it's just, I just read it 10 minutes ago. So that's one thing I would say. And the other thing I would say is rotate your activity. So, if you, in your first study block, I used to say, okay, Brady, so how many study blocks am I going to get from you today? Or any day? Let's say you're a full-time studier and you say 5 study blocks. I go, impossible. No, you can't study this stuff all day. 45 minutes, hour and a half. Let's say you commit to 90-minute study blocks. I would say 3, 4 max. So, that means you're going to commit to me that you're going to do 3, let's call it 3. And the other thing you want to do is rotate the activity. So if your first study block was reading and second was doing questions, and maybe the third is doing a video, and then you rotate that activity. If you rotate the activity, your brain will stay fresher. And also rotate the subject area. So you shouldn't take 3 study blocks to do options on Friday. Right? If you're gonna do options in study block 1, then do, munis in study block 2 and mutual funds in study block 3. Keep changing that channel intellectually, and it'll keep your brain housing group a little fresher as well. So
Okay.
that would be also what I would tell you. And then, you can't possibly, as I always tell people, it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. So, I had somebody told me they watched all my videos, like 400 videos. I'm not so sure that's a good idea. But if you're struggling with something, then you can cherry pick that. Like,
Okay.
if it's non-equity options, I got a non-equity options lecture. If it's whatever it happens to be, you can cherry pick what you need to kind of plug the gap, so to speak. Right.
Gotcha.
So that's how I would use that.
Okay.
But there's
Awesome.
plenty of practice questions there too. So you can always, if you run out of practice questions, I can't imagine you are, but if you do.
Gotcha.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for
Oh,
your
you're
time. I
welcome. You're
really
welcome. You're the
appreciate it.
winner. You were the winner. You can't win 2 days times in a row, but we had a Nico as a winner, so you're back in the mix. You can win again, win again. And
I'll be
it's not
tuning in Tuesday.
yeah, it's not a transaction, it's a relationship. So don't feel like this is it. Keep me posted on what's happening. And we can always throw up a free Zoom just to check in. Or if you have a
Awesome.
Kaplan QID number, that's that number in the right-hand corner. If you have any questions you're struggling with, or even if you just read the rationale, you go, God, I don't still understand it, or I did it some completely different way. Just send me that QID and I can see what you're looking at, and I'm more than happy to help you on that.
Perfect. And
Okay.
after the test, would it be helpful for you to maybe for me to send you an email kind of stuff I've seen and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. Debrief. I'm not allowed to ask you. Love it. Love
Okay.
that. I
All
can't
right.
ask you like Brady, like what was question 35? But what I can say is, hey, what do you think we could have done a better job preparing you for? And
Cool.
listen, as you know, I did here's 2 pages of debrief. And I, share that on our live stream, not particular questions, but yeah, if you say, hey, Dean, I wasted a lot of time on whatever, that's helpful too.
Mhm.
I call that
Okay.
part of paying it forward. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
I'll be sure to shoot you an email.
Okay,
Definitely.
sounds good. All right.
Awesome.
You know where to find me if you
Alrighty.
need me.
Thanks again, Dean.
Okay, see
Appreciate
you
it.
on the live stream Tuesday.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.